Welcome to Rges Pre-Algebra, Lesson 20B. We will be covering 4.17, which is more on word problems, and then we'll take a look at 4.28 and see if you need any review at the end of the chapter. So I'll decide on that. But right now we'll look at more word problems. To do this, I want you to have your book handy, so go get your book and turn to page 145, lesson 4.17. Put it on pause and return when you are ready. Our first example says, separate the number 97 into three parts so that the second part is twice as large as the first part and the third part is two more than the second part. I think there's a couple easy ways to do this. One would be to do a table. We would have the first part, the second part, and the third part. And we're going to try to represent, if we don't know what the first part is, it will be x. But we have a relationship between the second and the first part. It says the second part is twice as large as the first part. So for this one, we can write an expression based upon the first part. So if the first part is x, the second part will be mathematically 2x. And now we look at the third part and see if we can write another expression. It says the third part is 2 more than the second. So if the second part is 2x, then the third part is 2 more. So we would add 2 more. And now I have an expression for each of my parts. We know that altogether they sum to 97 because the first section says, separate the number 97 into three parts. So if I take, you don't have to write this down, but if I take the first part plus the second part plus the third part, that should equal 97. Now I'll plug in my expressions for each. X is my first part from the table. My second part is 2x. And my third part is 2x plus 2. Again, to make it easy to see, this is first part, this is second part, and this is third part. And once you get to that point, you've got your equation. So just like we were discussing last time, our first step is to identify variables or expressions that combine variables. Our second part is to write an equation. Our third part is to solve it. Hopefully this is the easier part for you at this point. I have how many x's altogether? I have 1 plus 2 more plus 2 more. That would be 5x. Combining this, and this, plus 2 equals 97. Now recall how we solve an equation. We eliminate both the 5 and the 2 by taking them to the other side of the equation, but we have to take a plus or a minus away first. So the opposite of adding is subtracting. So on the other side of the equation, I would say 97 minus 2 or 95. Now I still have to get rid of the 5. Right now I'm multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I want to take 95 divided by 5. 5 goes into 9 one time, remainder 4. 5 goes into 45 9 times. So my x is 19. Now the next thing I have to do is interpret. I've been asked for what are my three parts. Well, my first part is x, going back to the table, so that is 19. My second part is what? Going back to the table, it's 2 times x, so that would be 2 times 19 or 38. And my third part would be the second part plus 2 more. And the second part would be 38 plus 2 more is 40. Now altogether, to check it, these two would have to sum to 97, and they do. Okay, let's look at another problem. Number 2 says Aaron Green earns money doing yard work. In 3 weeks, he earns $56. If each week he earned double, how much did he earn the first week? Okay, so we're talking about over 3 weeks, and we're talking about earning a different amount each week. So we want to talk about the first week, the second week, how much he earns the first week, how much he earns the second week, and how much he earns the third week. Okay, so this, hopefully you see, is kind of a similar problem, actually, even though the details are different. So it says in 3 weeks he earns 56, so if we added all those together, that would equal $56. And each week his earnings double. So if he has X, if he earns X amount his first week, what would he earn his second week? Double that. What is double X? That would be 2 times X. And the third week he doubles from the second week. He doubles again. So if we have 2X the second week, what would we have the third week? 2 times 2X or 4X. So put that on pause if that's not real clear to you. And go ahead and make sure that it is, because you're trying to teach your brain to think in these patterns. And now we want to add all that together, the first, the second, and the third. And that would equal 56. Now notice this was step 1 to identify my table or my variables and how they're related to one another. Okay, I'm talking about first week, second week, third week. Those would be the different topics or the different variables that I have. And then over on the right-hand column, I'm relating them to one another. Now, let's plug it in. The first week is X. The second week is 2X. The third week is 4X. And altogether, that will equal 56. And at this point, I have my equation, which is step 2. Step 3 is to solve the equation. Now notice in algebra, if you come up with an answer by playing around with numbers in your head, I don't care. I want the equation. This is the most important part of the problem. I want you to think algebraically. Okay? So we've got 4 plus 2 more plus, or I'll go from left to right. 1 plus 2 more is 3 x's, plus 4 more is 7 x's. And now I need to get rid of my 7 to solve it. And so that was part 1 of combining like terms to start to solve it. And now divide by 7, which is the opposite of multiply. 56 divided by 7 is 8. Now we still need to interpret. The question was, how much did he earn each week? So the first week he earned $8. The second week he earned 2 times that, or $16. And the third week he earned 2 times the second week, or $32. Check it a little bit. It should equal 56 in all. That would be 32 plus the first one is 40, 56. Okay, and that's how you do it. Let's look at the next one. It says here an electrician and 2 helpers earn $564 in a day. If the electrician earns 4 times as much as each helper, now hopefully you can start recognizing this. How many things am I talking about? I'm talking about an electrician, and I'm talking about helper 1 and helper 2. And when I add them all together, I'm going to earn what? $564. Okay. We don't know what each one, I might want to put X there, but as I'm reading down below, when they're expressing the relationship between the electrician and the helpers, it says the electrician earns 4 times the helper, as much as the helper. So I'm going to put an X there. The other helper earns the same amount. The electrician earns 4 times the amount. So hopefully that's clear to you, and that's step 1. Step 2, we want to convert this to an equation. We'll say the electrician plus 1 helper plus the other helper altogether equals 564. And that's my equation. Step 3, I solve it. I have how many x's altogether? 4, 5, 6. And then I will divide by 6 so that I have x equal all by itself. The opposite of multiply is divide. Let's see, 6 goes into 54 9 times, remainder 2. 6 goes into 24 4 times. So now we interpret. Helper 1 earns $94 a day. Helper 2 earns the same amount, $94 a day. And the electrician earns what? He earns 4 times that. So 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 9 is 36, 376, there we go, dollars per day. And so we should be able to add all that up, and we should get 564. Let's check it, make sure we do. That's 10, 14, 18, 19. Where'd it go? Okay. 18, 19, there we go. 26, and then 3 plus 2 is 5. So I want you to go ahead and try all of these on your own, these word problems here. There's 14 of them, and that will give you lots of good practice, and you'll come and we'll look together at anything that's confusing. Now zip on over to section 428 for a minute, and let's see if there's anything I think you might need review on. Okay, section 428 is not, as I assumed, a chapter summary. Instead, it is a section here that we skipped earlier called Evaluating Algebraic Expressions. So 428 is evaluating expressions. And whenever we evaluate an expression, we want to think 2 ideas. The first step is to plug in. We are plugging in values that we are given for each of our variables. So constants, right? For variables. And that's pretty easy. That's just setting up a parenthesis for each variable. In other words, let's say we have 4x squared minus y squared, and I tell you to evaluate it. I need to first be able to, I need to give you what x equals and what y equals for you to be able to evaluate it. And in this case, x equals -2 and y equals 3. And then I need to plug it in by using parentheses. For the x, so I'll write down the 4. For the x, I'm going to put in parentheses -2. And then outside the x, we have the square. Minus, plug in for the y, in parentheses, the value of y is 3, and outside the parentheses is the square. And now the second thing you need to do is when you do the mathematics for this, you need to remember order of operations. First square, then multiply or divide, then add or subtract. The order of operations. So go back and review that. That was quite a long time ago in your book, if you need to. So I'm going to do this square and do this square. Now watch how I think. This says 4, and because it's right next to a parenthesis, this means multiply. So I'm going to say 4 times, -2 squared. Well, a negative times a negative. Now notice what that is. I'm not going to write it out every time, but -2 times -2. A negative times a negative is a positive, and a 2 times 2 is 4. This is the word problem. Like that. Minus 3 times 3 is 9. Now on my next line, so 2 is, this is problem 2. This is annoying. Just take that away. Okay. The next thing I need to do is multiply, because multiply comes before addition and subtraction. 16 minus 9, and 16 minus 9 is 27. How about 7? Well, I confused my addition and subtraction there. Okay. Let's look at another one. If you said 2a squared over negative 3b, the first thing I need to know is the values for a and b. They give you that. They have to if you're going to be able to evaluate it. And now I'm going to plug in using parentheses. Very important. Don't shortchange this step. The a is what's going in parentheses, and the square is outside the parenthesis. Over negative 3, the b is in parentheses. Okay. What do I do first? In my order of operations, after I've plugged in the values with parentheses, I need to do my square first. So this will become 2 times 5 times 5 is 25. Here I will have a negative times a negative. Notice this is multiply. Negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. Now I might do that, to be honest. That's fine. The reason I'm hesitating a moment is if I see that it can be canceled, I would be more inclined to leave it like this so that I can just cancel out my 2's. And my answer would be 25/3. I'm very happy with that answer. They'll make it a mixed number, 8 1/3, or a decimal, 8.3. This one makes me perfectly happy as long as it's reduced. Okay. What you don't want to do is leave it as multiplying through 25 times 2 is 56, not 56, because that is not reduced. So don't make it that. You still have an extra step to go. All right. I think I'll let you follow through with that on your own, and we'll talk about any questions you have in class.